Welcome, one and all. My name is Jason Davis, and this is Empower Volusia Common Sense. I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location hidden in the upper western Highlands of Volusia County, Florida, in an iron bunker hermetically sealed for my protection. And we are guarded here by 2 rabid Pomeranians and 1 crazy cat, and the other 4 just kind of hanging around. And you may be listening to me right now on JasonDavisPodcast.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, Gab, Wimkin, MeWe, and Parler. I'm truly everywhere you want to be, all the social media outlets that have come up now. It's just been absolutely crazy how many are just all of a sudden this year, they're there. Well, here in the old iron bunker, we have been having an internet problem. Like, no service on the internet since November 3rd. Yeah, I feel as though they've been trying to stop my First Amendment right or something. But I am not a conspiracy theorist. It's just a bad amp down the hall or down the road there. And it's taken some time here. But we have found a way to upload. Granted, it's really, really slow, but I will keep on getting you the truth as quickly as possible. So let's get right to it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
So today's date is November 16th, 2020, and the election for the President of the United States. It continues on and on. There's been quite a few updates about this since Friday. So we'll get into some of that. So this has been the most contested election in American history. And why has it been so darn contested? Well, the true answer is because the numbers, they just really don't add up. Let me premise this with a statement that I remember from my college days when I took political science classes. The statement is this: 50% of the population of the United States of America is registered to vote. And only 50% of that actually do vote. You know, and I've actually watched polls and elections and such, and I found out that for the most part, that's pretty true, with a few points, give or take 10 points. You know, there's been 35% vote, there's been 15% vote, and it depends on, you know, presidential elections or midterms. So, but, you know, and you know, some of these have been truly contested or heated elections. But for the most part, I will tell you that that statement has been true. The actual fact of the matter is that generally, 25% of the population of the United States takes it upon themselves to vote and exercise their civic duty and decide who is the elected representatives, senators, and the leader of the free world and our country. It's been that way really pretty much since after George Washington, who was actually appointed by Congress as President of the United States. And a little subnote, it took him actually 4 months to get him to get there. He really didn't want the job. So now let's get to this election cycle here, 2020. And I do know it has been a very heated election. I saw the Trump rallies with thousands of people across the country. And even this weekend, tens of thousands of people. As a matter of fact, I heard it was like 170,000 people. And that was just somewhere I heard it on the internet or on the news broadcast in passing as I walked through the room. And those, those people were going to this Trump rally in all the different states and in D.C., and you know what? I also saw the 50, 60, maybe 100 people going to a Biden rally. See, the numbers aren't working here for us. Am I here to question their campaign strategies? No. I do question the validity of the election, though. Because, well, like I said, the numbers just don't mix just with the people going to these rallies. And the numbers are not adding up in my poor little pea brain. So, let's talk numbers.
Go ahead. Make my day.
First things first, the 2010 census lets us know that there's a little over 331 million people in America. That's according to the 2010 census now, because 2020 census has not been published, and I don't even really think they got through it at all. As a matter of fact, as the COVID fearmongers jumped up and down, I never saw a census taker anywhere And during the 2010 election, I saw a whole bunch of them. So there you go, folks. You could take that information for what it is. So basically, the most reliable number we have at this moment is 331 million Americans in this country. Now, if we hold true to the political science statement that I read early about 150, the statement I said earlier about 50-50, I read a little bit too fast on my script here, then 151 million Americans have voted. And simple math dictates if you multiply that times 4, there is roughly 560 Americans in the United States. I don't think so. That would be a lot of people. That would be like, that would be like a tenth of the world population. Just about, was it 6 billion people on the planet? I don't know. I have never really looked. I just listen and try to remember these numbers as far as that goes. But that's apparently there's 560 Americans. I don't think so. So as you see, the numbers just don't jive. So I had to read a little bit further of information that said this was the highest level of voters we've ever had. They said 65% of the voters voted. So let's work with that number. Sticking somewhat with the statement from political science courses, 331 million, you divide it by 2, gives you a whopping total of 165.5 million people. And if you take 65% of that, it gives you 107.575 million people. So that number doesn't work. It's if you'll notice, it's closer to just half of the population. So what I see is a discrepancy here also. So I decided to take another number. Let's take the number of 331 million, America, and find out what 65% of that is. It's 215.15 million people. These are simple math problems, folks. And if you take that 215.15 million people and take 65% of that, you come up with 140 million people, rounded up a little bit there. We're close, but we're still not there. Why do I say half? We're going back to the political science math. 50% are registered to vote. So according to the math, and so I got kind of tired of playing with all the numbers. So what did I do? I said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and just figure out how many Americans, what percentage of the American population voted. So, according to the math never lies, around 46% of the entire population voted in accordance to the 2010 census. Really, from a country that usually only has about 25 to 30%. Interesting, but I still find it hard to believe. Oh, and by the way, I really found another real interesting little tidbit of information. Joe Biden wants to be the 46th president of the United States, and 46% of the population voted. Just pointing out a slight coincidence. That's it. That's all. Not saying anything about it. So what the lamestream media and the Democratic Party wants you to believe is the more people registered to vote this year, and were actually voting in masses greater than the years of Obama. More people voted now than people voted for the chosen anointed one of Obama. Amazing, huh?
Promises stupid as a stupid does.
According to released poll numbers from the Federal Department of Elections, 114 million people voted in the 2018 midterm election. That's just a little tidbit of information that you may not have, which is, by the way, only 34% of the population. That's a normal. That means that, well, once again, over 30 to 40 million people would have had to register to vote since the midterm elections. Once again, I find this a little difficult to believe. You can't get people to register to vote. Here in Florida, in the great state of Florida, where we actually can do elections, when you get your driver's license, you register to vote. That's right. So it's pretty cool here. We take all the middlemen out of it. But anyways, digressing. Now, there's a couple other numbers that I kind of played around with. These numbers, first things first. There's over 6.1 million convicted felons that do not have the right to vote. They've lost it. They are disenfranchised because they are convicted felons. There's 500,000 homeless people in the United States, which do not vote because most people in cities don't want homeless people walking and voting because, for whatever reason, we won't go there. According to a recent study done, there is 1 million people that are in hospitals that are unable to vote because of ailments, like they're in intensive care or under cancer, all these things that they can't get out to vote. Right, and there's 1.5 million people in nursing homes who don't generally vote, and that takes 9.1 million out of the equation, leaving 321.9 viable voting citizens, which changes the math a little bit, but it's still right around 46%. My political science teachers all told me that people that are generally in nursing homes and over the age of 70 are generally looking to atone to a higher power, so that's why they don't generally vote. Yet, 150,000 nursing home residents said, I want an absentee ballot, all on the same day. That's an interesting number. But now let's add a little bit of shall we say, statistical analysis here, if you don't mind.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
That's right, be afraid. Be very afraid. Because did you know that after the votes stopped counting on Tuesday night, the machine said stop counting. And that fateful Tuesday night, November 3rd, 2020, and then all of a sudden, there was an uptick in Joe Biden votes at around 2:43 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, different times. All of a sudden, 139,900 votes miraculously showed up in the column for Joe Biden in Michigan. They came in through the back door, which just put him over the threshold of Donald J. Trump. Now, this is not conspiracy, folks. These are graphed facts, and you can find the graphs. What happened once? Okay, we'll say that that's an abnormality. It's just odd. But wait, it also happened in Wisconsin. That makes it an improbability, statistically speaking. And then it happened in Arizona. In Arizona, they lost votes, but we'll get to that in a minute. Nevada, it happened there. And Pennsylvania. Now, that makes it very suspect for voter fraud. But who am I to say anything about it? Let's let the true professional, the one who knows about voter fraud.
The situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this, we have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Wow, he really said that. I mean, that's straight from the horse's mouth, and he's another part of the horse's anatomy too. And it is truly amazing that in all these instances, the uptick of votes were for Joe Biden, were just enough to get him over the threshold with a mathematical analysis to keep him between 1% and 2% over Donald J. Trump. Remember, over 1%, you do not get an automatic recount. It has to be less than 1% of the vote. But, apparently the math was not so good, and they're having recounts in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia. Oh, by the way, the same thing happened in Georgia with an uptick of all of a sudden Joe Biden votes. Boom. But when that uptick happened in Joe Biden, not one single Donald Trump vote came in in that 100,000 plus votes, which is a statistical impossibility. Somebody should have messed up at least once. Just one out of 139,000 would have thrown the mathematical probability out the window. So now we have people with big brains in the world, and they started asking, this is weird. Why did this happen? How did this happen? And they started to look a little bit into the software that runs the voting machines from Dominion. Then they did this backtrace IP address, which means you follow the electronic trail back to where the command was given to do the deed of stealing an election by taking votes or deleting votes. And once again, I'll get back into the deleting in a minute. With the back tracing of the IP address, and it came to servers in Barcelona, Spain, and Frankfurt, Germany, which, according to reports, both nationally and internationally, these buildings were raided by the U.S. military under the direction, I guess, of the CIA or maybe under generals. I don't know. Somebody in a high rank did it. They're confiscated and are being looked at and looked into and gone over with a fine-tooth cyber comb, and they are going to find out who, what, where, when, and how. Who gave the order. For you see, this computer is linked to Dominion software for the elections. And there were over thousands of those machines here in the United States. And this is linked through a subsidiary company that's supposedly bankrupt. While a bankrupt company's fine, somebody took the servers. Somebody's playing a game, folks. And the game is with our democracy. And it's, at this point, it's foreign intervention.
You can't handle the truth!
In the state of Arizona, the software was also had another little fun thing to do. It actually took 10,000 votes away from Donald Trump. It was on the graph these graphs that I've been looking at these graphs were printed out by mathematicians all around and people who are keeping statistics. And it actually showed 10,000 vote loss for Donald J. Trump. Took him away. The graph of the votes cast done by the brain statistic gurus at Princeton University showed that Donald J. Trump rising in the vote, and then boom, he lost 10,000 votes. Now my question is this: how do you lose 10,000 votes that have already been cast? The ballots are there. They're in the box. Boop, they're gone. How do you do that? And then he never recovered that, because if he would have kept those 10,000 votes, it would put him way above Joe Biden. And sure enough, a couple hours later, boop, an uptick in Arizona for Joe Biden. In case you've been living under a rock for the past 2 weeks, which sometimes I really wish I was, you're well aware of the lawsuits filed, the evidence being accumulated by state attorneys, attorney generals, and lawyers for the president. And they're questioning the validity of this election. And this, as I have said, as has been the most contested election of my entire life. And to be honest with you, I was really hoping that the campaigns were over the night of November 3rd and I wouldn't have to hear any more about elections. Yet, this appears to be the gift that just keeps on giving. I'm telling you, it's really something else. So that's the news and updates there on that. But here we go with another question I have. Why are the members of the Biden campaign not interested in supporting the President of the United States in his quest to make sure that this election was not stolen, was not tampered with, or why it might even be invalid? To me, it makes sense.
Don't start nothing. Won't be nothing.
That's right. Don't start nothing that there won't be nothing, because, you know what, one would think that anybody in any political party that may have some sort of authority or power in politics would be really interested to know whether or not our election process can be hacked and is distorted or thrown out by opposing and throwing it to put an opposing candidate in office. You know? They were all about it when it was Russia. How many years was Russia? I even know how to spell Russia now. I even know how to spell Russia in Russian because there was so much Russia. But now that it might be domestic, or Democrat, they're not so interested in knowing who's at the fault, who's pushing the buttons, who's making that call. Personally, if it was me, and you know what, at one time or another, I'm sure I can tell you there was a time when I made a vote on something where they had to question the vote when I was in office. But if there was a question as to a vote or some sort of chicanery going on behind the scenes, whether it was for or against me or my opponent, I would want to know. The reason I would like to know is because if it swings things in my direction, then I'm going to be looked at as being the guilty party trying to sway or steal an election. Joe Biden needs to be careful. Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the entire DNC need to be careful. So if the Biden camp is not going to look into this, assist in any way, shape, or form, or if the Democrats in general are just going to fight the president and the Republicans tooth and nail, that kind of starts pointing a finger in the direction of the Democrats that you don't want to investigate this because you already know the real answer about what happened. As Joe Biden said earlier, they may just know who signed the order. Apparently, Joe Biden knows. Staying with the genre of the elections, staying with that genre. I just listened to a very lengthy discussion by a group of engineers that noticed an algorithmic pattern to several counties nationwide that were using this Dominion software. What? They graphed it out. Now, we're talking hundreds and thousands of votes and hours of painstaking time to build this graph. And they found something.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Dr. Shiva is a computer software engineer and a graduate of MIT. You could search YouTube for Dr. Shiva Live and scroll down to find this discussion. Very enlightening. Personally, the Trump legal team needs to be talking with him kind of like right now. I did include this on my website, so it'll be there on the website. You can click on that and go to his discussion directly. And it'll be on jasondavispodcast.com. And if you would like to listen to it, it's very lengthy, but they tell you the facts. They show you the graphical evidence where and this is the weird thing, if more Republicans voted in certain districts throughout the states, then there was a greater number of votes taken from the President Trump and given to Joe Biden. They were just stolen. A lot of this was in Michigan and Wisconsin and in Arizona and California. They couldn't lose California. I'm telling you, it's interesting, and you could see it on the graph. You can, if you have any idea about how math and algebra works, you could look at it and go, oh, I can write that math problem. You know how to do slopes, right? I mean, I'm not a big mathematician, but I can write a simple algorithm for drawing a slope of votes. And all those who understand a little bit about statistics will understand the slope that would transfer Trump votes to the Joe Biden campaign. And you know it can easily be done. So Joe Biden, because of all this stuff, he's lost Pennsylvania. He doesn't have Arizona. He does not have Nevada. He does not have Wisconsin. He does not have Michigan. These are all under litigation for voter fraud. He is not the president-elect. Try that in English. He is not the president-elect. I would try it in Spanish, but I can't speak Spanish. There is no office of the president-elect. That is fake news, putting up a billboard behind him or his offices, the DNC putting up a fake billboard, the office of the president-elect. There's no such thing. And transition begins in December, not November, after the Electoral College votes, which at this moment may not happen. Because, folks, I could tell you this. The U.S. military and the federal government have the servers. I'll say that again. The federal government has the servers. And the Trump team has got forensic specialists going through it right this very second. I want you to understand that. because I don't want this.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Because, my dear friends, Joe Biden might just not only lose, but there may be some legal issues going on for whomever touched that machine and and there's going to be jail time. This is a federal offense of the highest order. You're interrupting with our elections. Whoever was in charge of that, who gave the order, trust me, the people that own that server are sitting in a cell somewhere, and they're being talked to by CIA and military intelligence. It's going to come out. It will come out. I have faith it will come out. Now it's really pretty much up to the judicial system, though. And I'll tell you what, one thing, folks. I do hope that these judges, when this information comes to them, I just hope they use a little common sense.